Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today we are joined by a guest who embodies what it means to be a strategic veteran. Mr. Tom Spooner is a retired Delta Force operator with over 21 years of military service, including 12 combat deployments. His U.S. Army Special Forces service was only just the beginning of his battle. After facing PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and addiction, Tom turned his struggles into a mission to help others. As the co-founder of Warrior's Heart, Tom created the first private treatment center in the U.S. dedicated to veterans, first responders, and their families dealing with addiction and PTSD. With over 3,000 warriors in recovery, Tom aims to bring 1 million warriors home. His story is not just one of military achievement, but of resilience, leadership, and unwavering dedication to healing others. Today, we're going to explore Tom's journey from elite operator to impactful entrepreneur, digging into the personal and professional lessons that have shaped him. This is not just an interview, it's a conversation about finding purpose, facing challenges head on, and relentlessly pursuing service after the uniform comes off. Without further ado, Mr. Tom Spooner. Tom, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Adam, and thanks for having me, man. I'm really looking forward to it also.
Yeah, brother. Usually I start the show with a little kind of, where did you grow up? What inspired you to join? But I know your story is definitely out there. You did an episode on the Sean Ryan show where he at length dives into that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll basically give people a little brief overview. You came in the Army to the 82nd Airborne in 1990. 95, you end up a Green Beret, and then in 2001, you got picked up to go to the unit, and we all know that you guys are superheroes over there. So we're going to kind of forego all of that stuff. And I kind of want to talk about, your military career is well known, and I want to know, like, looking back now, what stands out to you as the most defining moment that shaped who you are today?
That's a great question. A lot of things pop up. It always goes back to, even as you were talking, the movie starts playing,
Of course.
So it's like the very first thing that impacted me greatly, and was still what I use today is my first platoon sergeant that I had when I was a E4. We came back from the Gulf. We got a new platoon sergeant, and this guy, he was a Vietnam veteran. And he was I think he was a staff sergeant again. You know what I'm saying? So he was a real Vietnam vet, right? And you know what I mean? And so this guy, man, all of his experience and everything. And but there was one statement, and like I said, I had done a lot early on. Had been to Ranger School, like Golden Boy in the 82nd. And I went to PLDC. I think they call it BLC now, but the primary leadership.
I have no idea. The damn Army and changing their acronyms.
How to learn to be an NCO, a leader, as an E5. And I come back from all of that, and he's checking in on me. He's like, "Hey, so tell me what it's like to be an NCO. What does that mean? And just out of PODC and Ranger School, I know, and he's like, I was like, mission first, and then he's like, yeah, no shit, of course, like, yes, absolutely true, mission first, and then health and welfare of the troops, and he said, yeah, what does that mean? In my mind, and everything that I had learned and understood, and and within 2 years in the Army, which wasn't shit, but what I had learned is like, beans and bullets, and I know how many kids they have. I know who has financial problems. I know if they're married, if they're not married, if they're living on posts or in the barracks. He's like, yeah, jackass, that's not what it means at all. And I'm like, so I had no idea what he was going to talk about, and what he said, hey, be it health and welfare of the troops means you provide them the ability to survive and thrive in combat. Right. And I was like, whoa, because that's a whole, he's like, yeah, you're supposed to know all that other stuff. That's what makes you a good leader, but do not confuse that with what health and welfare of the troops means, man. It was obviously so impactful, and then shaped. And that was even before I got sober, when I was off the rails a little bit myself, just super high functioning, but it still impacted me the same way because it was fundamentally the freaking truth, and, so that, still carries with me sitting right here, right now at Warriors Heart, looking at the dudes, mission, bring a million warriors home, and it's still health and welfare of the troops, give them the ability to survive and thrive in combat. But this combat, is in between our ears combat, which is much more deadly than actual combat to me.
So much more deadly. It's scary how much more deadly. And I love that answer because when you asked that question, when you were talking, immediately the first thing that popped into my head, because I had good leaders who made me understand it, was to provide purpose, motivation, direction.
Absolutely.
And it's no different in the work that you and I are currently doing. You're still providing that same purpose, direction, and motivation, just in a different fight.
Yeah, man, and we provide that, and we need that ourselves.
Absolutely.
Ooh, what I mean, because that's what the commitments, all of that, helps me to navigate. I mean, because still have bad days, between TBI, PTS, whatever. We can, if we filled out something, we'd qualify for any of it. That has to do with promotions or whatever, and
Right.
but it also but that's why it's so, like, I'm committed to this mission. I have direction, I have task, I have purpose, I have motivate, what I mean? And the motivation is like, hey, I'm not going to let them down, because that's how I'm wired, and that's how but it's the trickery, that's how I take care of myself, because I know, just like when we were on active duty, I always joke about it, but I don't recall. Do you ever recall someone coming up to you and asking you if you felt like doing PT this morning?
Never. Not
Right,
one fucking time. No.
right. Or if they ever asked you, like, "Hey, do you feel like going to the range?" What I'm saying. That there was things that we did, rain or shine, day or night, happy, mad, sad, glad. Like, you do them because you're not going to let the team down, because somebody's going to get wounded. They're going to need me to help. All of those things that were meaningful. So it's still the same today, but just we don't have the context. For me, it was when you remove and for a lot of veterans, like you said, when you remove the context of the military, wow. What I mean? I spent my whole adult life in the military.
Ditto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
voluntary Army, but they told you what to wear. They told you where you were going. They told you when you needed an appointment. They told you the values. They told, what I'm saying? Like, it was provided. All you had to do was perform within that. And so then once that is removed, it makes it, for me, super, super hard, because now because I know you've experienced this, like a lot of civilians, they'll see military, oh, you're disciplined. It's like, no, it's disciplined because I was in the military.
Yeah.
But
It's the first thing we abandon when we get out, to
oh,
be honest. The
man,
first fucking thing that goes.
all of that, because what I realized is that there wasn't really, I mean, I chose to be in the positions that I was in, especially the voluntary units that I was in, and they required a certain skill set, all of that. So therefore, I performed at those levels because I wanted to be there. Then now I'm out on my own, and I'm having trouble, like, picking out which freaking t-shirt I'm gonna wear, and then I'm like crying in my closet because I've been standing there for 30 minutes.
And you can't decide on a damn
Dude,
t-shirt. Yeah.
it's
Because
like,
yeah.
it's a lot, man. Yeah,
I
but
think I
anyway.
think this is an awesome segue into, so a large portion of this show, like I told you before we started recording, is really about the transition and how we end up in the places that we're in. And I think for you, Yours is probably going to be a lot more unique than a lot of others, particularly because of the unit that you were a part of. And I know, as you coming from an infantry unit myself, right, there's a brotherhood there. It's kind of an unspoken brotherhood. And as well as I do, having been in the 82nd, the infantry is kind of a separate, it's its own branch, really. It's its own organization within a larger organization, and things function differently there. So you have, I think, even a deeper sense of camaraderie. And then as you go through those different special units, ultimately culminating at the top of the mountain where you were at, I imagine that brotherhood is extremely tight. And so, what was the hardest truth about yourself you had to confront after stepping away from that team and having those people in your life to lean on? Because I know that couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, it was really hard for me because a couple of things. Like I was a super lifer, right? Like I was going to do 30 years. You're going to have to kick me out. I mean, loved it. And then, but I had broken back surgery, broken, undiagnosed, untreated TBI, shoulder surgery, leg surgery. You know what I mean? All the broken pieces from that profession. And so I ended up getting med boarded out. So I was pissed. You know what I mean? I was like, it wasn't part of my plan. Like I hadn't. The one of the most interesting things for me, the first thing I had to confront with my transition out of the military, or even like you said, just off of the team first, still in the military, but going through that thing. The first thing that I had to confront is that I lived through it. Like I didn't prepare to live. I didn't have a death wish, and I didn't. But dude, like a good amount of my buddies are up on that memorial wall. Like it's statistics. You do
Yeah.
this thing long enough, bro. It's just numbers. But
Your
I
ticket's
had
going to get punched. Yeah.
yeah, man. But I had decided, and not like a conscious, like I'm deciding that if I die here, it's cool. I never had that conscious thought, but I believed in the mission. I believed what we were doing, and I believed in my brothers to the left and right. Like, hey, if I died doing this thing with these people, I'm cool. Uh, you know what I mean? Don't want to, you know what I mean? Not looking, but again, back to the stats. So the first thing that I didn't even know what an E8 retirement check was because I wasn't even like looking. I truly did, and I like went down to the pack guy, and HSC, and then like, hey, yeah, man, how much does an E8 retirement make? And then he told me, I'm like, damn, that's not a lot, and but he's like, but anyway, that's how unprepared I was for the transition, right? It was not ever even a thought. Like I could just keep going and going and going, and I couldn't anymore. If I couldn't wear kit, because that's what it boiled down to was with my back. I couldn't wear kit without taking narcotics, and so that wasn't going to work for me, with sobriety. And so it was like, okay, well, if I can't do the job, I'm gonna my run is over, man. Like I'm just going to get out because I had effectively avoided any bullshit job my whole career. Like when I was in the 82nd, when it was time to be a drill sergeant or recruiter, I went to group, and then whenever I was at group and it was time to go to SWIC, I went to the unit. So I was like operational the whole freaking time.
You
So
swindled, you
I did,
bastard.
man. I did. I'm pretty proud of that too. But
You should be. That's impressive.
so when it came to that decision of like, holy shit, man, like it was so hard. It was so impactful. Plus, I hadn't had any kind of therapies, and I still had an undiagnosed and untreated TBI, which was significant, man. Like significant. And so it was that was kind of the even leading up to the thing. It's like shit, man. Okay, I can't do the job. There was only one reason for me to stay in, and that was like to get the bonus for staying in. They offered a big bonus at that time. We called it the devil's money, and everybody took it. And but if I couldn't do the job, I wasn't going to take it. And it was like, well, I guess I'm just going to get out. So that was just like the beginning of it. And then for me, and that was just like, take all my shit out of the team room. Like I'm not for the first time in my military career, I'm not on a team,
Yeah, I'm
and
sure that comes with its own set of challenges because I can relate to kind of what you're talking about. I also was med boarded at 12 and a half, almost 13 years. And as soon as I entered the med board process, I lose the platoon. I'm sent to range control, which is purgatory. You know what's happening to you when you go over there. I mean, range control was a really sweet gig. It was 3 on, 3 off, and I got to go shoot a lot of ammo that, you
Right.
know, the SF teams were trying to burn off for
Right.
budgets or whatever.
Right.
But the unit quickly, they're trying to open up the MTO slot for you, right? Like, and I'm sure it's probably the same, if
You get
not
ready.
more detrimental where you're at, right? Like more important and pressing. And I feel like they pretty much, like, you clean out your cage or your locker or your team room or whatever it is, and they're fucking done with you. You're not, like, you're gone, right?
Yeah,
Like
man.
completely.
Because this was time frame wise for context. You know, this is 2010 time frame, man. Like we're cooking. You know what I mean? Like you know, I mean the war machine is rolling. You know, so they don't. You know, all my guys, everybody was super cool, had a good reputation, bunch of good friends. You know, no one was upset or anything. But I mean, they're because they have to be, you know what I mean? They're kind of looking over their shoulder and kind of, you know, hey, you doing all right, man? You know what I mean? While they're going, and I don't fault the unit or them for that because
It's the
that's
nature
how
of the
it's supposed
beast.
to be,
That's
man.
how it works.
That's
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be, and I fully support it. You know,
But you don't
and
understand that when you're going
no,
through it, right?
and
Because
it's
you think you're something special to this, right? And I felt that way just even as a conventional guy in an infantry unit as a platoon sergeant. I'm like, there's guys here that count on me, that look up to me, that look to me for guidance and leadership. I matter here. And then the minute you enter the med board process, you're like, oh shit, I don't matter at all. I never did.
no, man. And so that began my, you know, making all those decisions, leaving a lot out. But you know, hey, I'm getting out, so decide that decision, and so then what does that mean, you know? And so then I started running through all the retirement stuff because I had over 20. So at first it was going to be like, okay, I'll just kind of retire out. And I had told them like, hey man, something's the matter with me. Like I'm not. It never impeded the team, you know, because everybody that I knew had been blown up significantly amounts of time. So it wasn't. I wasn't anything special. Like you know, everyone had been blown up, you know. So you know, whatever, you know. I mean, that's just kind of. But I started noticing, you know, like a lot of different things, especially with like a simple thing was I used to be able to visualize stuff, not like a photographic memory, but visualize a GRG. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is building one, this is Tango Tango intersection, you know, so you're oriented and stuff. And I lost that ability to like visualize that. So I just started looking at my sheet more. No big deal, you know, adapt, improvise, overcome, all that shit, right? But then my emotional well-being was off the charts because I was huge mood swings, you know, huge, and I'm sober. I think that's an important thing to categorize at this time for me. So if anyone is set up for success in the transition, it was me. Like I had a loving, supportive wife and children. You know what I mean? I was a member of, you know, member of AA. I had a support group. I had a God of my understanding. I have, you know what I mean? I have all the, and then I'm from a unit where just everyone wants to help me. You know what I mean? Like I'm totally set up for success, man. And meanwhile, I'm having to punch my address in a GPS before iPhones just to get home from the same route that I'd been running for 10 years that has 3 fucking turns in it, man. And I would just get lost. I mean, but the cool thing is, you know, took all the tests, got diagnosed with it, and then went to cognitive therapy, vestibular therapy, all of that. But even during that time, man, like even before getting out, I had to be taken care of, right? So I was in SF, you know, so the SOCOM Care Coalition is what they called it at the time. So they assigned someone to me, and literally, man, I had to be hand carried to my appointments because I would get lost at Walmart. You know what I mean? Like go to room 304. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, I can do that. You know what I mean? What do you mean? Yeah, I can find it. 3 hours later, man, I'm just like, dang, you know, it's totally distracted, just a mess. I
Well,
was a
and
mess.
And I watched another video that somebody was awesome enough to put together of you talking about this. And you dealt with that for so long that you said that you got to this point where you're like, well, all of these things aren't working. I know what will work.
Yeah,
Right.
man. Bullet in my brain. And again, not with the and because my decision maker was jacked, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, let's run through a course of action of like putting your bullet in your brain, you know, because that will definitely turn everything off. And like you said, grace of God, man, had that moment of clarity of like, this is very bad. Like I'm in a, like I am not, like this is not okay, you know. And then that was my motivation to get help. But then, so I was even getting hand carried along the way, man. And the whole time, uh, you know, and I went through the full gamut, like the med board, like the paperwork was wrong on it. I didn't give a shit about the findings, whatever. It was just like, hey, man, in 20 years, when I'm slobbering in a corner over in the VA, like y'all are going to take responsibility for this, not my
Right.
family. You know what I mean? Like, so I ended up going to the med board all the way, like, you know, they, you know, if you deny it, you know, then you have an appeal process. They look at it again, and it's like, hey, man, the paperwork is not right. You know what I mean? It's not correctly depicting what's the matter with me, you know? So I went all the way to having to go to Walter Reed, Master Sergeant Spooner, reporting to the president of the board shit, man. And so, dude, where what I like I said, we had talked about before, like just the love for where I came from, you know, and conventional guy, you know, from the top guys to the bottom guys, I was one of the guys, you know, and I'll never forget, man, like when I was driving back from Walter Reed, and that shit went sideways too. You know what I mean? It was like they got denied, and you know what I'm saying? So I'm driving back, man, and I'm just like, I was like, man, like I am having a difficult time just getting by, still on active duty. I was like, what's happening to that PFC? You know what I mean? Again, time frame is 2010. What happens to that PFC that on his first deployment to Solder City, you know what I mean, got fucking blown up, right? Stayed on there, has a TBI, comes back, gets drunk. Now he's in an alcohol related incident and they're chaptering him out of the army. Like if me, Mr. Defoe guy, senior, you know, all this stuff, man, if I'm barely making it, then a lot of the veteran suicide rate really made sense to me. You know what I mean? Because who's looking out for those guys? Man, no one is. Right? The answer is the VA, right? That's what it was intended for. But we know just to the nature, there's a lot of wonderful people in the VA system that are doing the absolutely best they can, but you know, the system is flawed, you know. So it was just like that was where I just got pissed off, man, and like a lot of motivation of like, because I'd always, like you had said, I was a conventional guy, so I knew how conventional guys looked at us the way that I did when I drive by those gates. You know what I mean? Just like rubbernecking, trying to see stuff in there, and like
It's so true,
be
man.
one
I'm,
of
I'm
them.
here to tell you.
And so it was just like, okay, like, so I got to do something, man. Like I got to do something with this, you know. And like I said, I was big in sobriety since '92 and everything, so I was already accustomed to the how. You know what I mean? Of you talk about it. You know what I mean? You tell your story, man. You find solutions. You stay in the solution. Fuck the problem. You know what I mean? Like, and so I knew how to do that, man. And then it was, you know, then that was before I even left, you know, got out of uniform. Part of the transition, man. It was,
I, I hear you on all of that because I went through a similar journey. I battled the alcohol while I was still in the med board process to the tune of 2 gallons of whiskey a week, right? And then didn't understand what I didn't understand about alcohol withdrawal, so I locked myself in my apartment to beat the alcohol. Yeah,
oof,
terrible
and
decision,
then
not
you
a
get
great
back.
decision at all. But I made it through, and then then cannabis became the escape, right? Until, years later, I would go to Peru and have some fun, thanks to Heroic Hearts Project, shout out with ayahuasca, which changed my life. But I'm curious, dealing with the TBI, which yours was very significant, right? Like, I think I remember reading something about like 50% of your verbal memory was affected by that.
Yeah,
And there's,
50% processor speed, in my words, not technical terms. 50% processing speed and 50% verbal memory, man, is what I was operating with. You know, so the
and so
confusion and all of that. Yeah.
And so, in that, was TBI the big thing that was affecting you, or were you dealing with shit? Because I know you dealt with it, survivor's guilt, right? Like I'm a fanboy. That's not a secret. All us conventional infantry guys are fanboys of what you do. So I watch all the interviews and I hear the different stories. I remember Kyle Morgan talking about his first op at the unit and how, he hadn't had a chance to actually go to combat or whatever. However that shook out, I can't remember the whole story, but it was just a job to him. Like the killing didn't bother him. I hear a lot of guys say that the killing didn't actually bother me either, right? Like it was kind of like it's just war. But what did bother me was having to go pick up brothers and sisters' body parts after they get blown up, or having to work on that guy on that fourth deployment when he would come into the cop from the strikers on the medevac waiting for the helicopter just trying to save his life. That's the shit that got to me. The guys that, as a guy, we talked about this offline. I asked you, what is 12 deployments for you in combat time? And we found out that my 4 deployments equal more combat time than yours. But by the time I get to my 4th deployment as a conventional infantry guy, statistics say I shouldn't be here. And then that 21-year-old kid who just turned 21 yesterday is now fucking dead, right? Like that's the shit that affected me. That's the shit that I would hold on to, particularly on that deployment because I was in charge of the talk. I felt very responsible for that. I felt responsible that I couldn't get the assets. I felt responsible that I didn't have the technology to see that coming because later in that deployment, I would have some tools that were, better used to stop shit like that. Did you deal with any of that stuff?
Oh, all of it. all of it that you just said, man. But it was yeah, man, because like, and again, I had a pretty healthy toolkit, you know what I mean, for emotions and for mental, and but I was at deficit, right? It was the accumulation of all that different stuff, and so yeah, absolutely had to do all the brain stuff and everything, but also had to do all the emotional work. And good thing for me, I was already doing spiritual work, because it's mind, body, spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like we're human beings. That's what we're made of. Whatever. So for me, man, yeah, I had to go to see a psychologist 2 times a week for like the first 3 months, and then we started coming. I had to get on like Zoloft, low doses, but I needed to get because I had a fucking chemical imbalance, man. Like I was, I was not well. But the cool thing is, man, like the trifecta, right, is chemical dependency, undiagnosed, untreated TBI, and undiagnosed or untreated emotional baggage, whatever the fuck you want to name it. You know what I mean? PTSD, moral grief and injury, unprocessed trauma is what
Trauma. Yeah. And
it,
that's
it
the big
just,
one.
that's,
That's the big one.
and if you got all 3 of those, man, like you're not going to make it out unless a miracle, absolutely miracle happens. So that was the only reason why I didn't have the alcohol going with me, or I would have been done and done.
I feel that way about myself, having beat the alcohol before I got out of the Army when I was still kind of responsible because I was still a leader over at range
Yeah.
control. I was in charge of dudes and I
Yeah,
was
man.
showing up drunk on duty, right? Like that's a problem.
Dude.
Like was never that kind of soldier my whole career,
You
just for
hijacked.
the record. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. So I agree with you. Like if you have all 3 of those, because turns out I was still dealing with, a TBI. I know that 4th deployment, we had a mortar round land on the talk as I was going out the door, right? And then later that deployment, another mortar round would land on the chow hall as I'm going in the door, right? That's great, right? But so dealing with that and then the unprocessed fucking emotional baggage or trauma, like you talked about, if I would have had the alcohol, there wasn't a prayer for me.
No.
I know that with a fact.
And like what you were saying is I aggressively pursue, because here's the difference, man. That I had a leg up on a lot of folks that were getting out because of my long career, because I got sober really young. You know what I mean? Because I had a lot going for me. Because I still had a lot of identity that wasn't wrapped up in the military, even though a shit ton of it was. But I was a father, I was also a husband. Had all these things going on, man, and I needed to see a psychologist for a while. You know what I mean? To help me get through that. But the funny thing was, like, for me, with the psychologist that I was working with, who was also a Vietnam vet from the Phoenix Project. Okay,
Okay,
right?
okay, right.
He was a psychologist for 30 years after that, and but it was most of the stuff, man, that this guy, because I look, Vietnam vets, all my heroes, and because I looked up to him so much, like like he would give me tasks to do. Like he would ask me questions. Like I have two sons, right? It's like, hey, how much time do you spend one on one with each of your sons? And because I was in deployment mindset, like you have limited time here, you're all together, you do things together, and so now I was in this new world of actually where my family could come first before the military, because that's how it is when you're in the military. You know what I mean? Like they don't. You can
Always.
lie to yourself if you want, but like
You sure
you're not.
can,
And
but you're not. Yep.
so then now for the first time, like I actually could be a dad, I mean? I actually could be like my team was finally my family first, you know what I mean? But because, like I said, I had a leg up on a lot of people because there wasn't a lot of damage there, you know what I mean? Like me and my wife, we were together, and our family, but just navigating all that stuff, man. And eventually, just in normal psychology, you handle that stuff, and then it was seeing them once a week, and then once every 2 weeks, and then what, I mean, next thing you know, like, hey, I'm back to being okay. Like I'm back to having tools because I need back to needing a medic, right? It was just a psychology medic, you know what I mean? And now I'm back to where I can do self aid, and then I have other veterans, so I can do buddy aid, you know what I mean? So, that kind of piece was going on just in our terms, but man, like I needed a lot of help, man. But here's the cool thing is that if I'm committed to those, well, I was committed the same way that I was committed in the military, right? Like, what school can I go to? What deployment can I get on? You know what I mean? Like, I had to attack this new life because it absolutely was a new life with the same level of commitment, the same level of enthusiasm, the same. I mean, I had to this was now my mission, but I was so fortunate, man, that I had men in my lives that taught me, like, Tom, everything that you did to be successful in the military, which what you did, right? And you were successful. Like now you just need to take that template and drop it over this new life. So the first thing you need is a fucking mission, right? Like you can call it task, you can call it whatever you want, you can label it whatever you want, but just fresh out of the military, let's call it a mission. So it was like, because I think militarily, like, but if you're asking me to think a different way, like, okay, now I'm struggling with finding a task and purpose and a mission, and I'm struggling with you kind of want me to be a fucking hippie. You know what I mean? So I'm not. I don't compute. Does not
Yeah.
compute. Does not compute. And so, but they just taught me, and it's like, no, man, like, stay, like, you're who you are, man. It's fucking intense. You know what I mean? Like, you fucking are, people call it an addict mindset. Whatever you want to fucking call it, man, it's mine. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm like a Claymore mine, man, front toward enemy. I just had that Claymore facing me a couple of
I
times.
see the light. I see the
Yeah.
light. I see the
Yeah.
light. Here we go.
So I just needed to get redirected, man, but still utilize. Man, it's one of the biggest phenomenons that I experienced myself, and I see it with all of our brothers and sisters that are suffering. Is it is not in warrior ethos and what we did, say just in the infantry, right? Is like, dude, you never did shit by yourself. At minimum, it was a buddy team. I mean, minimum, you had a
And
battle buddy,
it's the
right?
same way at the elite unit that you're from, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, there would be some singleton stuff that you might
I've
do,
heard of that, but that's a volunteer
and
basis.
that's like
You're prepared for that. You go to special training for that, right?
exactly. But the rest of the 99% of the time, like, it's a 3-to-1 ratio, right? You want to overwhelm the enemy, 3-to-1, three of us, one of them, right? And so, but then this phenomenon, I call it a phenomenon because it means it can't be explained. Like, we throw all of that shit away and be like, I got this. That would be like if we were getting ready to go on like this really serious operation with a lot of bad guys in the worst of scenarios, and then the boss comes by and he's like, "Hey, you got an AC-130 gunship overhead," and I say like, "Hey, boss, don't worry about
We
that.
don't need that.
I don't need that.
Yeah,
I'll
we
grab
don't
an
need
extra
what?
magazine." You know what
Are
I
you
mean? Like,
fucking kidding
I
me?
would be fired on the spot immediately, been to a psych eval. You know what I'm saying? They're like, because you are fucking, like, something's the matter with you, man. To turn down this kind of support, which carries into the cool thing nowadays, is dude, there is no excuse nowadays for any of our brothers and sisters to not get the help that they need. Like there was a time when it wasn't available. Those times are long and gone. Whatever you need, if it's plant medicine, if it's TBI, if it's PTS, if it like, dude, between all the things that you've discovered, I've discovered, and the organizations that are out there, get the fuck out of here, man. You're staying fucked up because you're unwilling to do anything different, man.
Thank you for being so blunt about that, because I feel the same fucking way. Listen, if you're a veteran and you're listening to this and you're on one of those Facebook groups talking about all this bullshit, there is more than enough resources for you out there to help you get better. Tom runs a program. I have a community that you can come pay me money to be a part of, because I'm not going to waste my time on lazy people. Heroic Hearts Project saved my life. There's a million and one different programs. Operation Red Wings. There's so many out there that you can go and get the help, just like Tom's saying. So thank you for being the one to break the ice with that, because it needs to be said. I haven't said it on this show yet, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't said it on this show, but also trying to take a gentler approach and kind of appeal to everybody, because I really do want to help as many brothers
Absolutely,
and
man.
sisters as I can.
But
But sometimes you need to hear it that way.
and dude, there's too many of us that are dying still. That's where it's that's why I'm as, because I used to not be as blunt, like you said, with it, because there wasn't a lot of assets, you know what I mean? Or there was more for spec ops guys, because everybody likes taking care of the spec ops guys because it's cool and shit.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was a challenge. And I don't know where you stand on the plant medicine stuff. I don't know if you've tried it or whatever. It changed my life. Ayahuasca, I credit as the cheat code that showed me the top of the mountain and how to climb it. I just had to do the work, but it changed my life. And I got that from Sean Ryan's show, when he sat down with his wife and talked with Trevor Millar, and then he talked with his wife about the experience. And I knew immediately I had to seek it out. And that's what I quickly found, and I was pretty pissed off about it. Like, all of the charities out there that would sponsor veterans, you had to be special operations forces to go do plant medicine. Thank God I don't even know how I got connected with Heroic Hearts Project, but thank God I did, because it truly changed my life. And I think they're one of the only ones that still, for the plant medicine stuff, that cater to conventional forces.
Wow. Yeah, man. I don't know. To that point, though, the plant medicine, no, I personally haven't done it, and I'm not against it um, by any means, because I have like buddies of mine that I've known for years. Like I know everything there is to know about them, and I've watched them go to plant medicine, man, and absolutely just what it did for you, like did for them, and it's stuck. And um, that LinkedIn, that with a healthy lifestyle, it sticks. You know what I mean? But that's the key part, is back to mind, body, and spirit, man. You have to. We're human. Like we have to do that, you know. And but man, I have seen people where this life changed. But and what I know is that there's not a silver bullet for any of us, man. Like because the same, I mean, like I've met a lot of people that plant medicine was like horrible experience for them, and I've met a lot that it was the game changer. So it's like, man, there's so many things that are out there now. But here's the deal: if you're fucking burning it down with alcohol and drugs, none of that shit's gonna help, man. None of it. Like you go sit with the fucking Dalai Lama, you know what I mean, and go on your spiritual journey, and you get and it's not going to do it. You get all this TV, because nobody wants to be an alcoholic or addict, man. I mean, I don't recall the day whenever I was a young kid wrote on my goal list to say, man, I can't wait to speak at an AA meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh,
It's
I just,
not what makes our long-term goals,
no, man,
that's
I
for
can't
sure.
wait to get to rehab, man. Like, that is just, fuck, finally. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, I made it.
Said no
Yeah.
one,
No.
right? No
Right.
one, right? So, and but the thing is, man, if like I always go back to when a guy or gal is wanting to get help, you know what I mean, and they're looking at all these avenues. Let's say they're finally there, and they want to get help, you know, and it's like, hey, well, which one do I pick? Like, do I get my TBI? Do I get my PTS? Do I go plant medicine? You know, what should I do when it comes to like? So just remove alcohol and drugs,
Yeah,
right?
that's the first step.
Yeah,
It's
man.
the first thing you have to do,
Right,
and I
because
guarantee it will change your life.
right, just do that, because what you'll find, because everybody wonders like if I'm an alcoholic or addict, what makes an alcoholic or addict, this and that. Is like, hey, dude, if you can't stop drinking or using drugs, you're a fucking alcoholic or an addict. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can say that because I'm one, right? Like, hey, welcome to the club. So but the thing is that because if you're not, you know what I mean? Like, hey, you'll have some hard times. You'll detox a little bit. You'll shake, rattle, and roll, and you'll have to change some behaviors and change some people, places, and things. But if you do that and you can do that successfully, hey, great job. You're a social drinker, whatever it is that you are. That I don't understand because I drink to get fucking drunk. And so anyway, but that's the first thing is like, hey, remove that from the variables, right? Because I know you experienced this too. Is like if you're and like with anything, if we're trying to solve a problem, you've got to do it one variable at a time. You change too many things in the equation, you don't know what's helping you or what's hurting you, right? So change one variable at a time. Simple problem solving 101. Introduce a variable into that and see what the results are.
I love that you talk about this stuff because you've talked about tools, you talk about the mind, body, spirit. I met a guy when I first started building this, whatever you want to call this, on LinkedIn. His name's Matthew Banco, so I can't take credit for this, but he had me on his podcast. It was an awesome interview, and he asked me, a question. He asked me, how we have a MEPS to get in the Army? Well, we need a MEPS to get out of the Army. And the acronym MEPS to get out of the Army is mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. So those are the 5 pillars of things that you really need to focus on when you get out. And it's exactly what you've been talking about the entire time. And you talk about tools to do that. And the plant medicine journey taught me a lot of these tools. And it's all trying to unpack everything that you just said because it's all connected. And eliminating one variable at a time, what that allowed me to do was uncover the other addictions that I had: sugar, food, right? What else it allowed me to do is really get in touch with those emotions and understand why I'm eating all this sugar and why alcohol is being poured down my throat and all of that. And so a lot of these tools were gratitude practices, abundance mindset, breath work, yoga, simple being in nature, going outside barefoot, standing in my yard and grounding myself. Are these any of the tools that you use?
Absolutely, man. You know what I mean? For me, it's because again, a lot of my structure that I learned a long time ago was through the 12 steps, in AA, right? But it's a vehicle, right? It's not again, back to there's no silver bullet. You know what I'm saying? Like that guarantees that I will no longer find it necessary to drink or use alcohol to change how I feel. That's all that means, right? But in that, it is mind, body, and spirit. So that's been my vehicle. But man, it takes a lot to keep like this situation, but you know what I mean, above board, man. So for me, just on a daily practice, right? Because like I said, I'm a practitioner of the 12 steps, which means the 12 steps means I pass that on to other guys. So I'm a sponsor to other guys and help them out. So that's like a huge part of my routine that hits on the mind, body, and spirit and service. And then for me, the next thing I use this. It's an acronym. It's Miracle Morning. I don't know if you ever read the book, but this dude wrote this book. It's called Miracle Morning, and basically it's an acronym called SAVERS, SAVERS, right? And it's silent meditation, it's activity, it's visualization, it's affirmations, SAVE, and then it's reading and scribing, right? So it's just a
I
flow.
love that. I
So
need to read that book.
dude, it's amazing. So it's just a flow, right? Like so you can do 1 minute of each thing. Um, you know what I mean? But like I get up in the morning, my feet hit the floor. I'm already combating self pity, survivor's guilt. Like there's a lot of shit going on in my head.
Fucking painful body, all
Yeah,
that
man,
shit. I don't
all
want
of
to,
it,
yeah.
right? So if I don't have something for me to immediately engage into, like I'm gonna start fucking feeling sorry for myself, man. And I'm gonna like get in all these emotions and all these feelings, which I'm not qualified to deal with. I don't know about you, but
No, I'm not at all.
a professional, or at minimum a buddy. My head's a bad neighborhood, right? So you can't go there by yourself. Always get my ass kicked. So I have that savers mentality, man, and that acronym is like just do something, man. You know what I mean? Like I have to do something. Uh, like even with pray, I can only pray so much, right? I can pray myself into a depression. I can pray myself into a rage. I can. That's just me being honest. You know what I mean? But I do pray, right? That's one of my things, you know. But then I hit that acronym, man, and it's hitting all these different parts of me, you know. And like I said, it's a flow, you know what I mean. And so I'm engaging my brain, I'm engaging some affirmations which I thought was stupid as shit until I tried it, right? And then I was like, oh wow, this kind of works. But anyway, so that's what I do, man. But then throughout my day, like I'm required to have commitments with other humans. That's what keeps me going.
So important,
That is
so important.
because I'm not gonna I'm not a shitbag, right? I'll get to feeling sorry for myself and whining and kicking the can or whatever, but I'm not gonna let a teammate down. And if I'm letting a teammate down, I'm in a really bad spot. But that's my teammate. They're gonna know that. They're like, "Hey, dude, you're supposed to call me. What's up?" You know, I'm like, "Oh, bro." I start making up some bullshit to them, and then they see through my bullshit, and we get down to the meat of it, and then we get into action, whatever that is. Yeah, so I cannot, for me, like what keeps me going to date, like for me, what keeps me going is my commitments to Warriors Heart, uh, and my commitments to my family, right? So that's, but there's a part of me that my family cannot fulfill, and that's not a hit on my family. They're fucking amazing. You know what I mean? Like I'm the one at deficit when it comes to all of them, right? So but there's a part of me that I have to engage the warrior. Like, so I'm an old ass warrior, right? Like I didn't die. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. I didn't die. I can't do the job. I'm okay with not doing the job. Uh, don't get me wrong. I still don't long for a Spartan death at the gas station. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not looking for it in a bad part of town. You know, so man, the thing is that like I'm not going to let them down. You know what I mean? I have to have these commitments, and so when, not if, when I wake up and I have a fucking headache, you know what I mean, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, and it's like, fuck, man, I got to get like this podcast. Like, I want to do this fucking podcast, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they're not like I'm a quiet professional like that. Like I bought into that hook, line, and sinker, and like I believe it as a way of life, everything. But I wouldn't be doing this. Like I'm doing this as commitment because I know that there's warriors out there and humans out there that need the principles that are going to come from my mouth during this interview. They're like, oh, Tom's so great. Nah, I'm not. Like I'm great because of the people and the commitments that I have in my life. Me left with me, I'd be decent. I'd probably be a decent guy, but I am who I am because the people that I choose to surround myself with, without saying it, demand that I'm performing at the level I'm capable of performing.
Not only do they demand it, but they deserve it.
Oh, yeah, man, especially
And I
my
think
family.
it's so awesome to hear you talk about this because I feel a lot the same way. Did I want to have a podcast and be known as a strategic veteran and growing this? No, fuck no, I didn't want to do. I hate social media. I hate it so much. I didn't wasn't a quiet professional. I was just a fucking loud ass infantry guy. You know what I
Right.
mean? But everything that you're saying, like, I almost feel like we're like the same person essentially because I came back to the when I was feeling sorry for myself and stuck in that transition hole that we talked about, when I was getting out, I always knew what I wanted to do with my life was find a way to lead soldiers still. And look what I get to do now. It's the same thing that you're doing. We're leading, and not just soldiers now, but all branches. Right? Like, so I just expanded my market, which is really fucking cool. You
It's
know what I
way
mean?
cool. And man, it's a complete parallel with the military and combat because it is life or death. Not in the same context and not in the same way, but it is still life and death, which makes it so purposeful. Like it's not just cliche. We're not like like, no, the cool thing about you and me and folks like us is like, no, man, we're in the trenches. Like we come and we do this to get the word out, and then we're really doing the work. Like I'm gonna walk across the street and I'm gonna talk to some dudes. You know what I mean? Where you at? What are you struggling with? Like, okay, you know, like that man. I don't know what we know that every human being needs task and they need purpose and they need identity and they need social and we need each other. So so I'm screwed if I don't have that. I'm not speaking for anyone else, man, but I personally am screwed without the commitments to the humans. Yeah, the organizations and yeah, the mission, but more importantly, it's those humans that I don't want to let down, man. Like
Well, and I also think too, there's an element of it. Not only do you not want to let them down, but I think whether you realize it or not, conversation with others is very healing. You heal through conversation because through this conversation, we get to learn about one another, learn that we have a lot of the same experiences, even though we have completely different career trajectories, and we view the world a lot the same, and we kind of have the same goals. And now we get to sit here and have this conversation, and when this airs, we don't even know how many people this is going to help. And I think there's like an element of that to it, right? All through just a conversation. We have never met in person. I promise those of you who are listening, I've never met Tom Spooner in person. I would love to someday. I would love to go check out his facility, all that good stuff, but I haven't. And so that brings me to Warrior's Heart and you being a co-founder of Warrior's Heart. And I think I did some digging and watching some videos. You know, Mike Glover has, I think, the best one on Warrior's Heart. Is it Mike Glover? The he came out to your ranch. You told him about the 42-day program, and then you had a little blurb in there about filling each other's cup and taking 25% off of them. And we never really get relief that way. And you've done something really unique with your program and bringing on kind of outsiders who have never had that combat experience or whatever, so they can take that 5% and they can carry that with them. It never affects us. And then we get to relieve ourselves of some of that stuff. So I want you to, if you don't mind, will you talk about Warrior's Heart, where the idea came from, how you met the co-founder, that all that good stuff, and like kind of where the basic idea started and where you're at now.
yeah, man. So it's a hilarious story, of course. You know, Forrest
They
Gump
always
in
are.
there,
They
right?
always are.
So I first met, like I was all like I mentioned to the part of the story. I was always been involved with our population and getting better, whether it was with sobriety or just suicide prevention, all of that stuff. So I was already in that vein. And then in 2013, when I first got out, I still needed to be around our mentality. You know what I mean? And so I started training some military, but predominantly it was law enforcement, like the guys that are in the fight. You know what I mean, on a daily basis. Like for a long time, I still needed to be around it. I wasn't like living vicariously through them. Like I got enough hits, man. Like I'm fucking good. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
phase
know
was
what that life's like.
yeah,
I'm okay, but I need the
but I was
mentality. Yeah.
around it, and I knew I was giving them a good product. You know what I mean? All of that stuff. So that was still really important to me as far as the transition piece, also. And during that time, we would run these things called fun and guns. Well, me and my brother Scott, we called them fun and guns. We did like a 3-day event for some folks in an organization called the YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and we just put on a 3-day event. It was a ball buster. It was like unknown distance, unknown. It was like taking a little bit of spec ops stuff, just in theory, and putting them through it, And it was heavily on the physical side. It was a month and a half train up, blah blah blah, all that. But it was intense. Is what I would get to. So these guys that came, were intense dudes, in business, not military, not civilian, but they wanted this kind of training, and we did it. And my partner, Josh Lannon, was in one of those. That's where we met. So that Warriors, and getting to the answer to your question, where Warriors Heart began was in the woods at Hoffman, North Carolina, just outside of Camp McCall, with me just like living off credit cards and trying to pay the bills, off of these guys that were attending this, and Josh, who just wanted some military type training, because he loved that shit, and so that was the intention, right? As so so in that's where I met Josh, right? And after that event, obviously, I learned about him. You know what I mean? He learned more about me because we did what we called a warrior's experience, where we told a story to them, and it's the story that we don't talk about amongst ourselves, right? Those stories, you know what I mean? Like those stories and what it felt like and what it smelt like, and all the uncomfortable shit.
The shit you'll never forget, as
Yeah,
much as it's
man.
just laser etched into the annals of your brain. I understand 100%.
So
I still hate talking about that shit.
we gave them that story back to the cups, like you said, like the sharing of the story that must come from the warfighter. And so we did that, and it affected him greatly, right? And because basically at the end of it, it was before it was 13, so I hadn't had a lot of therapy, so I was still pretty freaking rough around the edges, and so I told all these guys, who were all business owners and everything, and I had a little chip on my shoulder still, at that time, and I was like, hey man, we talked to you about the veteran suicide rate of 22 a day. I mean, now you're aware of it, and now you just heard a story, of what the real cost is and what really has happened to people that you're actually working with that you had no idea about, right, prior to that thing. And now you have all this information, and you've operated your businesses, under freedom, at the cost of all of this, uh, and done very well, very great. Like, now that you know all this, what the fuck are you going to do about it? And I said it probably with a little too much intent. Like I said, I hadn't had a lot of therapies at that point, but I meant it,
I mean, I kind of think it's good. I
and
think you said it probably the right way.
and with Josh though, and it affected everybody differently, right? Because everybody is different, right? And but for Josh, it like went through his soul. You know what I mean? He's like, so afterwards, he's like, hey man, I've shortest version of the story. They had already owned and operated for almost 10 years, 6 different treatment facilities, high quality, high level of care, mainly to the civilian market or to the civilian market. And they had always noticed that, veterans and first responders, law enforcement always had a hard time in a mixed population because, you know, some of the cops, had put the people in jail. You know what I'm saying? They're like undercover in their own recovery. And then, what's a business guy and a combat veteran going to talk about, or a 20-year-old and a combat vet? You know what I'm saying? It's not lesser or greater than. It's just like there's no connectivity points. Yeah, yeah, we all got to do the same things to get better, but we all know there's no pressure like peer pressure, right? You can't develop a peer network with, it's just too far a divide, especially when you're hurting and just trying to get better, right? So Josh said like, hey man, you want to get together and do this thing, and it's kind of like, Step Brothers, like, hey, you want to get together and go do karate in the garage? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we did. And anyway, fast forward and all the way to 2015, whenever we found the property, we partnered up, me and my wife, Lori, and him and his wife, Lisa, because we knew how hard it was going to be. It was going to be a family deal. And we launched it, man. We found the property in 15. We launched it in 16, when we first started getting folks in, man. And at the time, and I still think it is, it's the only healing center in the nation that is dedicated solely to our population. And again, and that population being active duty veterans, law enforcement, EMTs, firefighters, folks that face life and death as a profession on a daily basis. It's the only one in the nation. It's not to be special or anything like that, but it's to immediately create a peer network. Because yes, the experience of a combat veteran and a stateside paramedic are very different, right? Different locations, different shit, but the shit that is eating us up inside is exactly the same. The kids that got hurt, the innocents, the teammates. It's it's fundamentally and principally, if Baltimore and Baghdad is different geolocation, same shit, man. Different mechanisms of injury, same shit. So we meet at that common ground. So there's this immediate peer network, man, where what I mean, where if you need a hug and you know what I mean, and, you know that's good. If you need a kick in the ass, because you can fool, you can fucking fool the fans, but you're not fooling the players. You know, I mean, especially in our population, you know.
No, I see right through that shit immediately. I'm curious, Tom, with the founding of Warrior's Heart and all of that, what has that done for you?
Oh, saved my life. Like not figuratively speaking, man, because it goes back to, so for me, Warrior's Heart is a culmination of my entire existence, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not like literally, because it's one place uh, on this planet where I can talk about whatever I need to talk about or want to. Like we can talk about God and how to find God and a path to finding God, and we can talk about killing people. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not one place that I've ever experienced, because with different audiences, yeah, I mean, I'm a smart guy, you know what I mean, and I'm an NCO, so I know my audience, right? That's the number one thing when you're trying to teach, right? So but I can't really. So I'm always kind of suppressing some pieces of me appropriately, also. But man, I can step foot on this property, you know what I mean, and walk into any group, into any therapy session, into the art room, into the metal shop, fishing, jujitsu, whatever is going on around here, man, and I can be me. You know, and I can talk about the things that I need to talk about. That's like the big joke is like, oh, Tom and Josh, Tom made this place, for all these guys, which is true. But then the trick is like, I really made it for me, because so I would have somewhere to go, man. like,
Well, and I think
because
that's an important distinction, right? Because in serving others, there's actually a selfish element to it that people, I don't know why they're so apprehensive to admit, but like this platform, you can talk about those same things. Like you're free to talk about on my platform, whatever it is that resonates with you. But also, the selfish part of me having this podcast is I get to help people, and it actually fills my cup up. It makes me better as a person to have these conversations, to pick your brain, to have these conversations. And I don't know why people are so apprehensive to admit that about their thing. Like that doesn't, like
yeah, man, because I'm the first one to say it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, because I've done it for so long, so I've been in this game, to some degree, of helping others and others helping me, specifically on chemical dependency, but on the life side for 32 years now, right? Like I've been doing this jam, like what we're talking about I got 32 years of reps at it. So I don't know everything, but I've
but you
experienced
know
a
a
lot.
lot.
I know a lot.
Yeah.
And so, man, but it absolutely goes back to the commitments, man. It goes back to, yeah, I would not, in a strategic meeting that Josh and Lisa and me and Lori and another one of our strategic advisors talking about Warrior's Heart, the vision, where we're at and where we're going, the words that came out of my mouth, is like, hey, man, I need Warrior's Heart. Um, Not in a needy, dependency weirdo kind of way, like, no, man, but it fulfills every commitment that I could ever have in my life other than to my family, right? I get
It's
it.
100% in alignment with your core beliefs and values and your and what you were put here to do. And that's how I feel about what I'm doing as well. Like I don't I don't ever wake up like, no, I don't want to fucking do this today. Like I'm excited. I'm genuinely I've been, with the exception of today, for whatever reason, I was nervous to talk to you. You're easy to talk to. I was been out of shape for no reason. Oftentimes, how it goes with these things, but I was genuinely excited to do this every day. I've got four more of these this week, and I'm going to be just as excited for those. When Thursday and Friday roll around, and it's
Dude,
it's time to do them again.
and I think I can say this. I think it's a must for all of us, man. If I'm not excited to some degree, you know what I mean? I mean, especially when I'm first starting off and I'm in the grind, and like would say when you first started the podcast, all the work and effort and energy and anxiety and all of your shit that you got to go through, what I mean, to do something. But man, that's where guys are always turning to these other methods, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or any other kind of addiction, like you were saying. We're just being addicted to being fucking angry, you know what I mean, and living in the past, being what I call professional veterans, you know what I mean, where you're like doing all these things, man, and it's like, bro, like because the veteran population, uh, more so than other populations, I think, especially those that experience war, not negating the ones that didn't, because they're equally as important. But when you experience, what we experience, you have so much to give. It's our responsibility, right? I mean, to we lived through it, like we survived. You know what I mean? Now it's our responsibility to be pillars of our communities, and to promote change, and to make the hard calls and to do the hard things. I mean, right? The whole it's not part-time warrior shit, you know what I mean? Like it's like you either are, if you are, then that's why there's the need for all the addictions and stuff, man, because that piece is not being fulfilled. I'm not happy. I'm not excited. Like, dude, if I don't, like we'd already talked about, if I don't have a mission that is fulfilling to me to some degree, a measure of happiness, a measure of fulfillment, like I'm in a bad spot, man. It's just a matter of time. Like that, it just keeps going down, and there's plenty of people around that'll back up my bullshit. Like, oh yeah, bro, yeah, fuck that, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? That turn on the news, like that's all you got to do. Or start talking about politics. It's like, hey man, be excited about whatever you wanted to be excited about, but like, are you making a difference? You
Right.
know?
I love how you put that. Like we survive, so we owe it to the community to be pillars in this. And the professional veteran looks at that like a curse when actually it's a gift. It's a gift to be in the position that we're in and recognize that we're in this position, right? Like we have all of this knowledge and have been through the worst of the worst and come out the other side without taking our own lives. And so we owe it to our brothers and sisters to pay that forward and really help them eliminate the mistakes that we made. Because I don't know about you, but I'm so sick and tired of picking up my phone once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, 5 fucking dead battle buddies in a week. And it's like, when is this shit going to end? And it culminated for me last year, right before the Peru trip. I lost 2 really good mentors of mine, E7s, who I would have thought were the last people that would kill themselves. And I lost one of my best friends in a motorcycle accident, and I just lost it. I just punched the fucking door, put my fist right through it, scared the hell out of my wife, because I've never been violent like that around my wife. And it's like, fuck, I've got to do something about this. I owe it to my brothers and sisters to stand up and do something about this.
Absolutely, man. And that's where the narrative needs to be from veterans with veterans, like, because the unhealthy narrative, yeah, I can say that it's the unhealthy narrative that is out there is that narrative entitlement, right? Like civilians owe us something,
No,
right?
they don't know a shit.
No,
Remember, you volunteered to do what you did. Whether you recognize that or not, you signed your name on the dotted line. And in many cases, my case, I kept signing my name on that dotted line, right? You did too, as well. We were very much lifers. I was very much in the same position that you were. I just didn't make it as far as you did. But I was on my last contract before I go in def, and I had every intention of being in for a minimum of 22 years. Didn't play that way.
yeah, man. And that's where it has to come from us, is like to make that turn of, like, instead of entitlement is that responsibility. And you said it the best, where it's like, my responsibility is to my brothers and sisters that are no longer here. It's not my responsibility to the community, which is, I believe, is too big of a divide of an approach, because it's like, hey, Tom, I believe it's the truth. We experience that. We owe it to our communities and to civilians to bring it to communities. But more so than that is what you said. It's like, hey, I need to be a part of the non-entitlement group because I owe it to my brothers and sisters. Like, they didn't die for me to fucking whine, bitch. Now, I do believe that, like, hey, as far as workman's comp goes, you know what I mean? The government owes, owes some
First,
shit.
hey,
Yeah, yeah,
that's a whole nother
that's
podcast, and
another.
then we could go down that rabbit
But,
hole. I'd be happy to.
but I do agree with, like, hey, the U.S. government does owe me stuff for that I did on the job. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, right there, man, that's where it all ends in a voluntary organization. You know what I mean? The whole volunteers can't complain. But it's like when you're in that dark spot and you're hurting and you feel left behind and you feel left out and you feel you have no identity. Like, I get it, man. Like, I was that guy. Lucky for me, a very short brief time, and mainly internal because I'd taught to keep my mouth shut, and
Right.
so
We're real good at putting on the outward appearance, but being just ripped to shreds inside. I was the same way, and I was angry all the fucking time. Oh, so angry, and I don't even know where it really came from. I was just any little dumb thing would set me off, and I relate to what you're saying 100% because that's my story as well.
yeah, man, because the anger, and I believe this, people have said it's just my sort of anger is usually a byproduct of another emotion, right? It's a secondary emotion. Now, there's some times where there's shit that makes you mad, and it should, like children getting hurt. You know what I mean? You mess with my family, like appropriate. But for me, and it's been throughout my life, not just with combat, is anger. It is a secondary emotion. What it was for me, man, I felt betrayed. You know what I mean? I was hurt, man, and I was full of shame and guilt and remorse and all of that stuff. But I did not have the capacity to deal with those real emotions. So, as a survival mechanism with my brain, because my brain is only concerned about one thing, and that's survival, is my brain will automatically default to anger because that's more manageable. You know what I mean? Versus feeling sorrow, feeling all of those emotions, man, betrayal, like all of that. So I had to. That's why I always break it down to is like you can't just tell people to stop acting entitled, right? It's like, hey, why do you feel entitled? Well, these motherfuckers, they owe me. What do they owe you for, bro? Well, I mean, you have to get to like six. I think it's like 6 to 9 whys. Like you just say why, you know what I mean? And then you get to that part where it's like, fuck, man, I felt like I gave everything, man, and then I'm just a number. It's like, okay, now we can talk about that, man.
See, and
You
it's
know?
so good that you're hitting on this because that's exactly one of those tools that I was talking about is learning how to sit with your emotions and understand, right? Okay, I'm angry. Why am I angry? What set me off? Okay, when is the last time I've been angry? Well, what made me angry then? And you follow it back far enough, like you said, 7 and 9 layers deep, you get to the root cause of the fucking problem. And you understand, oh, okay. And to your point, anger is so much more manageable because when I'm angry, it doesn't fucking hurt. I just want to go hurt things, right? But betrayal, sorrow, all that other shit fucking hurts. It hurts real bad. It's like a pain. For whatever reason, I think particularly as men, we don't like that at all. Right? I want to talk about Warriors Heart and the program. So let's talk about what the program is and just however you see fit, run us through from day one to day, whatever it is when it ends. And I know you've got a lot of people who love your program so much that they actually stay extra.
Yeah. And man, and feel free to like I'm super passionate about it. So feel free to like put the brakes on me at any point in time. I won't be offended. Where it's like and TBI kicks in and I start repeating myself. So let me know. But no, man, it's first of all, I mean, we talked about who can come, and that's active duty veterans, law enforcement, first responders, EMTs, all of that, right? So that's the who. Is primary diagnosis chemical dependency, right? So that's as far as licensure wise, I mean, by the state of Texas, we're a licensed treatment facility, primary diagnosis, but we're dual diagnosis facilities, right? So primary is chemical dependency. Secondary is all the rest of it, right? PTS, emotional grief and injury, childhood trauma, combat, MST, like all of the rest of the fucking things, right? That really are getting us, right? So that is the one thing that makes us very, very different than most treatment facilities, and that is that um, we handle the trauma and the chemical dependency, right? So they get a licensed chemical dependency counselor and a licensed trauma therapist, right? So that is what we're getting because most places try to silo it off like, hey, you go to drug and alcohol rehab, don't talk about that war stuff or the thing that happened to you with a kid and all that childhood trauma shit, right? Like we're just talking
Which
about
doesn't make sense because it's all tied together.
right, and that's why it
Fucking
doesn't work,
assholes.
right, yeah. So
Don't talk about the thing that's actually the problem. Just talk about the thing that's, a byproduct of the fucking problem.
right. So we do like we're one person, right? I'm not siloed off, man. Everything bleeds into everything, right? And so that's the big thing that we do. And just as far as the things that make us different too, we already talked about the peer network that's obviously established. And then the second thing is our clinical team, right? You get, like I said, the chemical dependency counselor and the trauma counselor. So you get two instead of one. And then industry standards is you get like one-on-one a week, right? That's the industry standards. The Warriors Heart, you have two clinicians and you get two touches a week, meaning you'll get a one-on-one from your chemical dependency counselor, you'll get a one-on-one from your trauma counselor, and then you'll get a caseload group, which is 10 or less. So it's a small group from each one of them also every week, which is unheard of in the industry. But I use that just as a point of reference. All that we're doing is what should be done, right? So we're just doing what should be done, and so that's a big deal because we need those professionals, like we talked about, just in everything we've been talking about. There's a point in time when I need a medic, right? Self aid, buddy aid, like not having, you know what I mean, medic, and so that's what these subject matter experts are, right? Which goes in alignment with warrior ethos, like sitting in a talk, like what you were saying, right? You have all these subject matter experts. You have the logistics guy, the intel guys. You have all the targeters. Like you have all of these people that we need their subject matter expertise. But at the end of the day, there's a warrior that's making the decisions. Like, thank you. I'm not asking the intel guy to write an op order, right? I mean, he could do it, but it's going to suck. Um, yeah, no. So we just so the thing is we need our licensed and our licensed professionals to do what they do, man. You know what they have licenses for, which that is their profession in life. Our profession was war. Their profession is healing and cracking people like us, right? And
I like to think my profession is now healing. I don't, like
oh yeah, man.
you got to shift that mindset
I'm not
though.
in the game
Uh,
anymore. I still shoot.
right.
I still
Of
PT, and I'm
course,
ready.
I could flip that switch. I might be rusty, little, probably not going to move nearly as fast. A couple surgeries since then, but I'm curious. I want to ask you a question about the group therapy because I've never actually myself done one-on-one therapy, but through Heroic Hearts and Operation Red Wings Retreat, I got a lot of group stuff, and I found the group stuff to be exceptionally beneficial. And I don't know what it is about it. Are you finding the same thing within Warrior's Heart?
Yeah, man. And it was the first question you asked, kind of walk through a day, I think will dictate it, so a day in the life of. But to answer that question, absolutely, man. It's the combo of both. What has worked best for me and others. And again, anytime you can receive more training by an expert or those better than me or further along the path than me, I'm going to exponentially get a results, right? Like that's just common sense. I can try to learn on my own and do it yourself kind of shit, and I can do it. It's going to take me a lot longer, versus sitting down with a master and saying, I mean, they cut through all the bullshit, all the stuff, they lessons learned they had, we get it immediately. But then the group ones, man, they're so powerful if they're being led successfully, appropriately. So, and just to give a day in the life of, man, and it's super important too because again, back to our population, we're used to working for shit, right? We're used to,
Well, routine
yeah,
and earning everything that you get. I
right.
follow this in my daily life, right? The
Hmm.
first thing I do when I get out of bed every day, it's not make a cup of coffee. It's strap my shoes on, grab the dogs out the door for a 4 mile walk. The first hour of my morning is out walking I try to keep it at 14 minutes a mile, which is moving pretty quick, not nearly as quick as I used to. And only then when I come back do I allow myself to have that cup of coffee because I earned it,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
And
man.
I,
Yeah, so the deal is 42 days long, right? It's 42 days minimum, and then if clinically appropriate, some folks even extend. If they need more training, because it's training, man. If you view it as cleaned up, trained up, it's like that's what it is. So our day starts at 07, right? It's our first meeting, not first formation. First meeting. And it's a accountability appointments for the day, that kind of stuff. Pledge of allegiance, a reading or two. Everybody's well, the guy, the it wasn't part of the curriculum, but of course, this population, I mean, they incorporate it. They hang up the flags every morning. They got a flag detail. You know what I mean? So, some people, well, and some people, kind of like break away from the military kind of stuff, and that's cool. And then some people are still very strong in them, so that's cool. So our whole job out here is provide like a buffet of everything, so somebody can grab onto it. So 07 is that 0730. So it's not militaristic, but it's got that battle rhythm to it. It's got that school kind of mentality, whatever academy, basic training. Again, not militaristic, but it's got that flavor to it. So 07 is first meeting, and then 7:30 is chow, and then 8:30 is the next piece because we got the 8:30 to 9:30 block. So what do I do in the mornings, right? So throughout the 7-day week, 2 days of that week we'll do yoga. 2 days will be the nature hike, and then 2 days will be savers. So that little acronym I described. So we're trying to arm them with facts and things that they can do immediately when they leave here. You know what I mean? Like just do what you've been doing for 42 days, and you're going to be successful. So that's just the 8:30 to 9:30 block, and then from 10 to 12 is our group sessions, right? Always before lunch. Don't sit in a group after lunch, right?
Nope.
Again,
You're gonna have some nappers.
so we have our, and that's where our big like trauma therapy groups, like our process groups, they call them. They have some life skills in there. And there's obviously different themes in a curriculum to our 6-week program, right? It's just like any military school, you got a 6-week curriculum. So that's 10 to 12. 12 o'clock is chow, 12 to 1. So from 1300 to 1700, that's where we have all of our electives. So the electives that we have is a wood shop, a metal shop, a regular art shop, fishing, more gym time. We got a swimming pool, and more PT, right? We got a badass gym. So what we're trying to do is during that elective time, because we're doing all of this intense emotional work with our therapists and talking about our feelings and all of that shit we hate talking about in group, like, oh my God, you need that time where it's like, man, I don't want to fucking hear your voice. I don't want to hear my voice. I just, yeah, man. And whether that's beating out, you know what I mean, beating out steel coming out of the forge, whether it's painting, like I said, we got a buffet, you know what I mean, for folks to, because ideally they're going to find something that works for them, you know, whether that's the metal shop, the wood shop, all of that. So when they leave here and they go home, you know, they have something to fill that time that they used to spend at the bars, they used to spend doing all that stuff. You can't replace something with nothing.
Well, I want to point out that all of those things, I kind of learned this when I came back from Peru, all of those things are actually a form of meditation. I actually,
Absolutely.
when I got home, for whatever reason, I don't know where this came from because never in my life was I interested in it, but I got into origami. I was folding paper and I would do it for an hour every day. I sucked at it. I was horrible at it. It was frustrating, but I found that when I was doing that, it was the only thing I was focused on.
So
It was
anything that you've put 100% focus on produces the results of meditation, right? Because that's what meditation is. So it doesn't that, and that's the whole point with what we're doing is like it doesn't have to be. If you can sit and silently meditate for an hour,
no,
like,
that shit's not for me.
well, I mean, either like crazy people come out and start running around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we do all that during 13 to 1700, and all the things that you said too, man, is like the creative aspect we've destroyed for so long, whether it's relationships, people, act, you know, all that stuff is like, hey, yeah, man, this tomahawk might look like shit, but I made it.
But I fucking made it.
Yeah,
I
so
did
I
that.
made
Right.
something
Yeah.
instead of broke something, you know. And
Right.
so we have all these different venues for them. And during that time frame is when they do their one-on-ones. They'll do their small caseload groups. Then 1700 is chow. 1800 they get their phones from 18 to 1900, and then 19 to 2000 or 2030 if it goes a little longer is an evening meeting. Usually that's an outside AA meeting being brought in or NA meeting, you know. So that's it. So the only really free time starts at 2030, and that's when the magic happens, right?
I saw that in the
Because
video
the
that you
guys are
talked
by
to.
the fire
Fire
pit.
pit.
Other guys are playing, you know, playing games, playing music, you know, just doing what we do. For some guys and gals, it's been the worst day of their life. Like they just uncovered and were trying to process through some of the hardest trauma they've ever, you know what I mean? They're fucking don't even know which end's up, you know what I mean? And then you have someone else who has just had this huge breakthrough, you know what I mean? And never felt the amount of freedom that they're currently feeling, man. So you got all of that, and then you got the guy that's at day 41, and the gal that you know what I mean, who's kind of scared about leaving, and then you got the guy or gal at day 2 that's thinking of how do I get the fuck out of here, you know what I mean? So all of that is coming together, man, and all these groups are breaking off, you know what I mean, and everybody's sharing, and you know what I mean. And it's about that again. We're this population, man. A lot of that happens by the fire. It's just primal, you know what I mean, and it's so that's where one of our mission is warriors healing warriors, right? And it's not a cliche, man. Like I said, we use our curriculum, in our structure and our subject matter experts to kind of crack us, you know what I mean, to get it moving, to get these emotions, these unprocessed trauma, unprocessed emotion, just moving. But the real healing that occurs, man, is what comes from other warriors that we're just trying to figure shit out, you know what I mean? Or I'm telling you this story and I'm, you know what I mean? And it's, yeah, man, that's the magic of Warrior's Heart.
Dude,
And,
I'm so proud to know that you're out there doing this, proud to get to have this conversation with you, because everything that you've said is like everything that I've discovered over the last year that has truly changed and made my life better. I had to take the hard road to get there. I didn't know about your program. I wish I would have. It sounds like a dream program to have participated in. How many people have seen success with your program versus the number of people who maybe don't see success, if
yeah,
you know the answer
I
to that?
do, man. Well, generally I do. And, so it's, first of all, it's a 42-day program, right? So most programs out there are 28 days. Well, why are they 28 days? Well, they're 28 days because that's what insurance dictates, right? Not
Yeah,
because
and
that's
fuck insurance, because they won't pay for a lot of these programs if you're over the age of 21, believe it or not.
so that's number one. Like, okay, that's not like an ideal. What we found with again back to my partners in business, Josh and Lisa, who's like we're perfect partners, man, because I can't do what they can do, they can't do what we can do, right? So we're both necessary, right? So they're just they got it down, man. So what ended up unfolding is 6 weeks is like a sweet spot for being in an inpatient treatment facility. We've also found that post 6 weeks, if there's also actually a degradation that goes down if it's not clinically approved. But unless what was the fucking question? Sorry.
The number of people
Number
who
of
have
people.
had
There we go.
success, but
I'm tracking now.
versus the number of people who maybe don't find the success.
So our
And
first big number, man, of success for us is that we have a 90% completion rate. Industry standard is 60%, right? And a lot of that is even at 28 days. So we're adding more weeks to it and it's still being completed. So that's like the first, because in any training environment, the longer you're in training, the better chances you have of succeeding whenever you get out of here, right? So we got that piece going on. So that's the first win for us. The next one, and this is collect. So in 8 years, 8.5 actually, we've had 3,000 warriors come through. So that's huge for us. So we have this third party data collection unit. It's called Track 9, right? And it has a bunch of, I think almost 200 other facilities are in this organism that they collect all the data. So that's what we're comparing these from, not just numbers that Tom is pulling out of his ass. So it's so the cool thing with that third party, it gives us actual data. You know what I mean? And the actual data that we have is that 80% of the folks that come through Warrior's Heart get sober and stay sober. Now let me create context with that though. That's including, because these are where the numbers that always get skewed, but I'm just always transparent. Like that's including the guy or gal warrior that is at day 2, right? I mean, they're at day 2, and the one that has 2 years. You know what I mean? So there's a large spread within there, but I mean, compared to the other facilities that we have, that's the percentage that we're at as far as that. The bigger thing for me, man, is that folks relapse, right? And if you look at Warriors Heart, like any tough military school, you've got categories of people, right? You got people that are ready for it, right? They knew what they were getting into, man. They've prepped for it. They're ready. They get cleaned up. They get trained up, man. They're happily ever after, right? They're just killing it from there on. Then you got some people that, hey, they failed a couple tests. You know what I mean? They need some retraining. You know what I mean? And then they make it. You know what I mean? And then you got some people that have showed up that had no fucking idea what they got themselves into, you know what I mean, and just aren't there yet, right? So that's like the context of this little micro bubble that we have in here, because everybody, as you experience and I experience, we're all at a different place on the journey, right? So we're all coming to this one spot, right? And that's from homeless veterans. And when I say homeless, I don't mean like that one time. I mean like for years. You know what I mean? So we've got homeless veteran and all the way up to active duty uh, spec op guys or conventional platoon sergeants and sergeant majors. You know what I mean? That just hadn't gotten in trouble yet, right? You know what I mean? They've seen the writing on the wall and they're like, man, I need to get my shit together. So we meet everyone where they're at, because that's obviously a big spread, right? So
What's important, that's really the key, is meeting people where they're at. I didn't learn that until I went through the Being True to You course to get the psychedelic and addiction recovery coaching certificate. That was the biggest takeaway I took from there, is if you want to be a leader in this space and truly help people, you have to understand how to meet them where they're at. You can't just force this on them. No. And I'm so glad to hear you say that that's how your program's structured, because it's the most effective.
absolutely, man. And that's why so we have our structured curriculum, you know what I mean, which hits what it's supposed to and what state licensing demands that we have to do, you know, so we have to do all that. But the one-on-ones is where like truly meeting them where they're at, right? So it's freaking amazing. So here's the thing that is the most amazing. Like I've been in this for a long time, like I said, 32 years. Most folks, so whenever everybody leaves, right, to varying degrees, some people, you know, we've got some warriors that from the first time they came here, some of the first clients, they have over 8 years sober now. You know what I mean? And all of that stuff. Some folks go out and relapse and back down. Here's the big thing. I've been a sponsor for guys in AA and, you know, alcohol, drugs a long time. When folks relapse, right, there's a ton of shame and guilt and remorse. And like you're not going to hear from them for a while. You know what I mean? Like that's what I've experienced with guys that I've been working with. No judgment on mine. This shit is just all that they're feeling. Man, whenever it was one of the most amazing, coolest things, whenever folks relapse that leave Warriors Heart, man, some of them within a day or a week, like they're calling back up here. Like that's unheard of, man. And what it means is that we've created a space that's without judgment, that is only supportive, that you know what I'm saying, where it's like, hey, you know, that safety, you know what I mean, comes from security, right? You know what I mean? That's the feeling of
Well, and
safety.
it's a testament to what you said, and we talked about this offline, right? Like if you only had 42 days to train people for a gunfight, right? They're very much going to a gunfight afterwards. You've given them the tools to understand, okay, I relapsed. Well, that just means I need to call in fucking air support because I couldn't handle it. And there's nothing to be ashamed of by
Nothing.
it, right?
Nothing,
And
man.
I think that is a testament to your program and how your philosophy on the program, because that is the most amazing way I've ever heard a rehab program or a nonprofit portrayed, is like, I have 42 days to get these people ready for war, because it's a war. And you even give the example, there's a gas station at the corner at the end of your road that, and there's drugs in every city. So, like if they really want it, they're going to get it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But it comes back to, again, this is like, and it's what I always convey to the clients, you know, the warriors that are here is like, man, this place is basic training, right? Or your academy, if you're law enforcement, whatever it is, like, hey, man, this right here gives you the fundamentals that if you put into practice, like with us being veterans, let's say, and go into war, like, hey, if you in basic training AIT and then you go to war, right? And it's like, especially with you, you know, and it was like, okay, if you do these fundamentals, you got a really good chance of making it. You know, in war, there's bullets flying and stuff like that. Like, but if you don't do these things, you're fucked.
Yes.
Like there's no mystery. Don't be confused. Like when, oh my
It's
God, what happened? How did I get drunk
yeah,
or high
there's
again?
no gray
No,
there.
man,
It's
there's no
completely
gray.
black and
It's
white.
like you failed to do the fundamentals. So of course you didn't make it. Like, right. So, but if you do those fundamentals, man, you've got a chance. But just like when we left basic and AIT and showed up to our first squad, you know, our first, you know what I mean? It wasn't like we showed up and then we're like, You see this fucking blue cord I got? You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
no.
you were like,
Yeah.
holy shit, new guy. Now you're getting ready to learn, right? But
Let me tell you about my new guy experience. I got to Fort Stewart somewhere between a week and a month after they came home from the invasion of Iraq. So you can imagine what my life as a private was like, running around in BDUs. That's back before you had to wear a flag on your left shoulder and you didn't have a fucking combat patch and I didn't have an EIB or a CIB. So I'll let you use your imagination for how shitty my life was as a private.
exactly.
It's not look at this blue cord. Yeah, motherfucker, I got one of those too. And until you have all these other five fucking things, don't talk to me.
Exactly. And the biggest thing that you knew when you got there, whether you knew it or not, they told you, you had so much more to learn. Right. So that's the thing about leaving the schoolhouse in this sterile environment because, very isolated. It's inpatient, man. It's like, it's very similar to going from basic AIT to war. It's like, when you show up to your squad or your new team, it's like now the real learning begins. Right. So I have to keep doing the fundamentals, and I've only just begun this path. Like, again, back to my military experience. Like, each step of the way, man, it was this continuous student, right? I mastered a lot of things, man, and then it was more learning, master that, more learning. So whenever it comes to mind, body, spirit, where all of us are out of our journey, like, we're still learning. Like, I'm still a student, and if I don't have the mindset of a student, I'm on my way to fucking myself up. You know what I mean? Because now I think I know something. You know what I mean? And I do, right? But I mean, tragedies happen every single day to
Well,
everyone on this planet.
I think there's another element to it too. Is like if you go through this program and understand that these are the basics, and you still have things to learn, quickly what you'll find is you'll shift into this mindset of understanding this is a lifelong practice. You're never going to master this, right? It's no different, like what you said, from the 82nd to the Green Berets. You mastered a bunch of shit to get to the Green Berets, and then you're like, fuck, I don't know anything. And then you master a bunch of shit to get picked up to go to the unit, and then you get through that and you show up, and now every single day it's a fight to just keep up, right?
Exactly.
because
100%.
it's not like, hey, oh, I fucking made it here, hi guys, I'm Tom, like fucking I'm a badass because I made it here. You're like, oh fuck, I really don't know
Yeah.
anything, you know what I mean?
No one gives a shit about your last operation. You know what I mean?
And I'm sure your entire decade in that unit, it was constant practice, constant putting those things into practice. And that's been my experience in the last year, right? I went to Peru 311 pounds. I weigh 211 pounds today. I'm probably in better shape than I was maybe some of my military career with injuries and everything else. But like, I have this knowledge and these tools, but it's up to me to continue to practice those things on a daily basis. And if I don't, I can see what happens when I don't. I can actually be aware of the slipping that occurs when I eliminate something that I should be practicing on a daily basis. And I'm so glad that you talk about all of these things, because it's the education piece in the beginning, letting them know this is creating the foundation for you to heal,
Yeah,
right?
man.
This
And I think
go,
too, it's just like what you said, which is so important and not a lot of people talk about is that just like anything, if I accept where I am, like, everybody hates being the new guy, right? No one wants to be the new guy. It sucks. It's stupid. You know what I mean? Everything. However, like, just acknowledge and embrace, and like, I'm the new guy. I have a lot to learn, and that's cool. Like, man, I want to learn it as fast as I can. Like, get after it. And it relieves some of the pressure when I'm making all these mistakes and I'm running into all these roadblocks. It's like, I'm fucking new guy. Like, I'm not supposed to know. You know what I'm saying? But I had mentors and I had teammates that were with me in this journey of healing and outside of the military that taught me that. Like, yeah, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I made this mistake. It's like, are you that fucking arrogant, bro? Like, you just started this walk, this path of whether it's on mind, body, or spirit, whichever piece of the path. It's like, dude, you've been at it for 3 months. Oh, and you should be this expert. Oh, because you're Tom Spooner. Because you're so. It's like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, you're fucking new. But the amount of pressure that took off of me to be like, to be just in that honest space of like, okay, I'm new, man. I'm supposed to be making mistakes. I'm supposed to be asking why. I'm supposed to be confused. I'm supposed to be seeking. I'm like, fuck, I don't get it. Let me try it again. Let me try, you know what I mean? So it's like, I always, especially with military guys, relate it back to military stuff. It's like drawing a pistol from a holster. If you were lucky enough to have one, you know what I mean? In the infantry, we didn't have them, but it's like, man, you know what I mean? The first time you draw a pistol out, it's like a spaceship. Like, what do I do? How do I hold it? What do I point it? What do I, it's like, it's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And then it's like, but then you do it again and you do it again. And then you're bumble fucking it. And then you're an idiot. And then you look stupid. Then you do it 1,000 more times. And then and next thing you know, like the pistol is just appearing in front of your face. You don't even really know how it got there because you've gotten in the reps. But it's like the train. If you look, man, what makes sense to me is if you take mind, body, and spirit, and whatever category I break it out to, and use the same methodology that I was successful in the military with, whether it was trying to get better ruck times for an EIB, you know what I mean, whatever it was at every phase of my development, if I just put that template on there, man, things make sense to me. It makes sense if I put the template of going to the gym and getting the results of going to the gym, that template on my emotional well-being, it makes sense to me. It's like, when's the last time I went to the gym? Oh fuck, 2 weeks ago. It's like, well, then doesn't it make sense that you're emotionally kind of fucked up right now because you're not addressing it, dumbass. You know what I mean? It's like I'm watching two YouTube videos about working out. Like I'm getting all pumped up, man, and I'm writing a plan, and then I call you up, Adam, and then we come up with a plan together. But until my ass goes into that gym and starts picking up heavy shit and moving it around, nothing is happening, man. Like, and so again, just like taking very practical, like I need practical, logical next steps. Like, because my head and my emotions on some days, I can't, I can't do what I'm feeling like doing because that would be nothing. I can't do what I'm thinking like doing because I think I'm a failure or I'm a piece of shit or whatever's cooking up in here. So what I need is like, what's my next step, man? That's why hey, you're infantry guy, right? This is what I always love going back to is battle drills, right?
I knew you were going to say it. I knew you were going to say it.
The
And it piggybacks off what I was going to say is what you're talking about is that journey from conscious incompetence to unconscious competence, right? When you were using the pistol analogy, it's a spaceship and then it becomes a little bit better. And then before you know it, it's in front of your face. You don't even know how it got there because you have drilled it and practiced it and repeated it so many times. Your mind muscle connection just automatically has it. And, same thing with the battle drills. I formally, I know we joke, right? Conventional guys look at SF guys and Delta guys as superheroes, right? Like we envy you, but I think there's an element of it. We all understand that really you guys are just masters of the basics with a lot more fucking money. And that's why you go back to the battle drills because this is the first thing you're fucking taught in IET, and I'm sure you work a hell of a lot on it, particularly Battle Drill 6, right? When you're at the unit,
dude,
like,
and it's just like you said, no matter what, whether you're a conventional infantry guy or in the unit, like you're walking through the woods, there's only one way to react to a near ambush, right? You return fire, throw hand grenades, and it's all through. If you do anything other than that, because of all the amount of hundreds of thousands of dead motherfuckers that have tried, you're going to come back to this same thing. Like, hey, you just do this, but here's the reason why we do it, right? This is a funny one as related to battle drills. Like prior to combat, right? I never understood, and it seemed like the most stupidest, dumbest thing. React to indirect fire, right?
I know,
Distance,
I know.
direction, you know, 6 o'clock, 200 meters, right? And I
Yeah,
was like, man, this is fucking stupid. Like, this isn't even real, right? And then,
right.
and
And
then,
then,
next
yeah,
thing you know, I'm receiving indirect fire, in combat, and I hear somebody yell a different direction. I was grateful that they were running, that they said a distance and direction because I was already fucking running. You know what I mean? I didn't have, no one had to tell me to run. Like,
right.
and then it all became crystal clear. I was like, oh, this is why they say distance and direction, because I'm
Uh-huh.
already going to be running, and so back to a battle drill, like battle drills when guys leave Warriors Heart, you know what I mean? And they're on their own, whatever. It's like, hey, man, just like a battle drill, it doesn't matter what you're thinking. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. It doesn't matter. Like all of that goes away and you're simply executing the one thing that you've already rehearsed executing so many times. Doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. We're not going to plan for it. It's a battle drill. You just do it. So I think about drinking, like, which is a natural thing for alcohol to do, but now I'm not in rehab and I'm having this like, oh shit. My battle drill is I immediately call my sponsor. I don't think like, man, he might be busy. Maybe I can push through this. I think about drinking. I call my sponsor. Period. End of story. Battle drill number one. Right. No, old number one. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about drinking. I call my sponsor. If I don't call my sponsor, battle drill number two, I call down someone extra on my list. I've got a list of 10. Someone is going to help me throughout that thing. So that's, man, where again, like where you take everything that we did militarily and you just plug it onto whatever it is that I'm trying to do. I'm gonna get the same amount of success that I got in the military with it, man. That is so freeing because if I had to figure it out, you know what I'm saying? If I had, what I mean, if I had to figure it out, man, that could be an issue, because a sick mind can't heal a sick mind.
No, it can't. And that's, I think, the most common mistake I see transitioning veterans making these days is the thought that they can do this on their own. And we've hit on it numerous times in this podcast episode, with your example, even at the level that you were operating at, it was still a buddy team at minimum. You're not ever doing 99.99999% of everything we ever did in the military was with someone else, with a group, with a small team, with a buddy system. You're not doing this on your own. So why in the fuck do you think you can abandon all of that bullshit when you get out and do it on your own? Tom, brother, I'm so grateful that you're here today. Just tell everybody how they can find out more about Warriors Heart, how they can contact you or apply to your program if they are struggling, because this is a phenomenal resource that I think everybody in the whole world should know about.
Yeah, so it's so that I got a number here, right? In let me get my glasses.
Man,
That's
fucking
where
getting
we're
old
at now.
sucks, doesn't it?
You know what I mean, man,
Yeah.
because the number changes, but the number is 866-955-4035. And then that's just the number, and that's the 24-hour line. And then warriorsheart.com, /connect. That that's how you get in contact. And what I want to say to them, our brothers and sisters that are out there, man, and it's not being cliche, but it's like, hey, man, you're not alone. If it feels that way, and it thinks that way, and it smells that way, it's not fucking true. It's you're in your head. It may be physically, you may be physically alone, man, but there's legions of other warriors, man, that are just waiting, to help out. But it does take you, meaning the individual, to be willing, to pick up the phone, to check it out, man, to go for it, because
And most importantly, to do the work.
because it's a volunteer organization, man. Just like we volunteered for the military, man. This is it's voluntary requirement, But that's the biggest thing, man, is that, and whether it's with Warriors Heart, whether it's with your organization, any organization, man, just make that movement uh, to get an assistance, man. You know what I'm saying? Like we did it in the military when we called for a medic. It's no different than that right now. Hey, can't do self aid, can't do buddy aid. Hey, let's make the call, and that's the biggest thing that I want to know, man, because there's nothing worse, as you well know, man, that feeling of aloneness. There's nothing worse, man. So yeah, we're here, man. We're waiting. We're ready to fucking join the team. We got a new mission. We got, you know what I'm saying, same badass fucking dudes and dudettes. You know what I mean, getting the job done, man, and let's get back to living.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Mr. Tom Spooner of Warriors Heart. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, download. Help me accomplish my mission, which is similar to Tom's, to get this in front of 1 million veterans and save as many lives as we can before I turn 40 on May 9th, 2025. I know it's a lofty goal, but there's 19.6 million veterans in the United States. So if there's one community that can make that happen, it's the veteran community. So I beg of you, please share this. It's already saved one life that I personally know about and probably countless others that I don't. So what we're doing here makes a difference. Tom, super grateful for you to be here. I really appreciate your time and your passion for what you're doing. I hope this was a pleasant experience for you. Until next week, everybody, we'll see you next week. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at the Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.